Hey guys, let me go ahead and wrap this up. This is probably the last time you'll be looking at the spreadsheet with me, so bear with me. Last one. I know I've been putting it off. It's been a lot, and this isn't, I want you to keep in mind too, this isn't everybody. I mean, we talked about the numbers a little bit, especially when we went over numbers, the numbers of the tribes, right? The numbers of individuals. If we had to put every single name in here, okay, that would take centuries like it has in the past. Alright, so this is it. These are the main hubs. These are every name mentioned in First Chronicles in these first 9-10 chapters. Of course, they're going to list some soldiers and people like that as we get into more of the narratives of Saul and David once more, covering things we have not covered before. So there will be some things that I'm adding, but what I'm going to avoid is stretching the Excel sheet any more than it has already been stretched. I will not add new columns so it does not go so wide. So right now I think this is kind of where it's going to be set. Of course I'll add some more I'll put some columns in. What am I trying to say? I'll put something in a row, right, and I'll put it in the row underneath, but I'm not going to add another column to go ahead and stretch the row, because we're not as much talking about relation anymore. We'll just be talking about people, maybe within the tribes or within the regions. Okay, so I started here, right, just because this is where we began. We began from Adam all the way up to Noah, and then from Noah we go out from there. So let me just scroll up a little bit. Adam, Seth, Enoch, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. And then Noah had his 3 sons. You see Ham over here, and we know Japheth is over here. And then we have Shem all the way starting at A. That's how much it stretches. We didn't talk a lot about the lineages from Ham or Japheth. It starts really in Shem. Abraham coming from the line of Shem. Okay, a lot of Israel, if not all of Israel, coming from the line of Shem. Okay, we really do not have a lot from Ham or Japheth as far as when we talk about the biblical narratives and the Israelites in the beginning of Jerusalem. Because as we know, Israel was somebody's name. Okay, Jacob or Israel, if I am not mistaken. Let's go to Israel just real quick, just so we have a nice broad overview, right? Israel, Jacob. As we know, Jacob had his 12 sons who became the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, let's go ahead and just read a little bit. Let me get back to my before we do that, let me go to where we're going to be. We're talking about now the lineage of Saul. Okay, so as we remember, Saul is a Benjamite. Saul was a Benjamite. He died a Benjamite. He came from one of the last of Jacob's sons, Benjamin. And if we remember, Joseph, Joseph, who was the point of envy for his brothers, right? They sold him off to Egypt. That's how Joseph became king of Egypt. Not really king, prince of Egypt, really. Prince of Egypt. He grew up in Egypt. He went to jail in Egypt, but then he actually rose to status because of the foretelling of the future events through people's dreams. He had that skill. Okay, so he ended up in Egypt. He had 2 Egyptian sons who actually became, Manasseh and Ephraim. They became the half-tribes of Israel as well. Okay, so here we're talking about Benjamin. He was the youngest, younger than Joseph, and this is where Saul comes from, as we remember. The Benjamites did get into a little bit of trouble. They had some issues within their clan. As we remember, they were almost exiled completely from the 12 tribes, which is not really something you can do. But, it was attempted, but it was decided upon that they would be forgiven. And without that, we would not have King Saul, the first king of Israel. Very first. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin our reading. Now that we know where we're at, I'm just going to go through pretty quickly here. Not that I need to, but, let's go ahead. Let's start with our quote. It says, "Look, stranger, on this island now, the leaping light for you discovers. Stand stable here, and silent be, that through the channels of the ear may wander like a river the swaying sound of the sea." This is On This Island by Adin. Alright, so this has some interesting, not vocabulary, but it has some interesting words that we can talk about, this little poem here. But the feeling and the mood that this implies, right, is stillness, loneliness, peace, if you will. I should say solitude, not necessarily loneliness, but solitude. Okay, relaxation. We have a little bit of earth imagery, thinking of the sea. Something interesting is our planet is majority water. As much land as we cover, as much as we populate the earth, it is majority water. The sea and the ocean dominates here on earth in terms of area, in terms of depth, in terms of everything else that you can use to measure land or no land. Okay, so that's very interesting just to keep in mind. But silence, solitude. It says, "Look, stranger, on this island now." It's actually very interesting because when reading the genealogy of Saul, you can't trace it all the way back, okay? We can't figure out, I had to put him here, I couldn't figure out. It does say, father of Gibeon is Jael. And with some Google searching, Jael may be the son of Hotham. And before that, I don't know. We just know that he was a Benjamite. There is no other information as to which son of Benjamin Saul did come from. But I put him appropriately right here on row 32, which is around right before David's time, okay? He was alive at the same time as David when David was a bit younger. But he's right around here. So keep in mind he's on an island all on his own, in a sense that we don't know where exactly in the tribe of Benjamin, where we couldn't trace it all the way back, which is interesting. But we covered everything else. So let's go ahead and start the reading here. The reading says, "Benjamin was the father of Bela, his firstborn, Esh-Baal, the second son, Ahara the third. These were the descendants of Ehud, who were heads of families of those living in Geba, and were deported to Manahath. We have Naaman, Ahijah, and Gera, who deported them, and who was the father of Uzza and Ahihud. Zebadiah, Meshullam, Hiziki, Heber, Ishmerai, Izliah, and Jobab were the sons of Elpaal." Okay, so we cover a few different patriarchs here. So let's go ahead and take a look what we have. Okay, so Bela alone, he produced 22,000 people, okay, with some time. Here are some of Bela's sons: Ezbon, Uzi, Uzziel, Jeroham, Iri, Adar, Gera, Abihud, Abinadab, and Naaman. Okay, then we have Esh-Baal. Here's some more of Bela's sons. Then we have Esh-Baal, Ahara, Noha, Raphah, Becher, and Benjamin had more sons than what is listed in the first section, because there's another section that covers a few more of Benjamin's sons. So if we're looking at the red row, those are all his sons here. Becher had a multitude of 20,000 people in his lineages. Jediel, 17,000. Okay, so it just gives you a little bit of idea. We talked about Ehud, right? So Jediel had Bilhan, who had Jeush, who had another son named Benjamin. Bilhan had Jeush, Benjamin, and Ehud. So here's Ehud, and here are his sons, Namar, Ahijah, and Jerah again. Okay, that goes all the way down, stretches. Ehud had another wife and some more sons, Jobab, Zibiah, Mesha, Malcolm, Juz, Saika, Mirma. He had another wife. Okay, some more sons. This is where we have Elpaal. So you see the complexity, right? You see how each time I read a name, I have to trace it back, and I have to put them in the right spot. Figure out, okay, Elpaal was a son of Ehud. Okay, he had these children: Heber, Misham, Shemet, Beriah. Okay. And then there's the other ones. I'm sorry, because we read these ones here: Jeroham, Zebadiah, Arad, Eder, Michael, Isaac, Jocha. All right. Oh, that's the sons of Beriah. Excuse me. Okay, there's a lot going on, you guys. Shem, Zebadiah, Meshullam, Hiziki, Heber, Ishmerai, Izliah, and Jobab. Okay, those are the other sons of Elpaal. Elpaal. Okay, so you see the complexity, I'm sure, right? Then here we run into the tribe of Naphtali. But this is the complexity. Some of these individuals are on islands. We'll learn about why. But let's go ahead and just sit with this, right? Sit with this. I encourage you to take a look. I'll talk to you about that in a second here. But let's go ahead and go back and finish off what this says here. Okay. Shamsherai, Shehariah, Athaliah, Jaareshiah, Elijah, and Zikri were sons of Jeroham. Ner was the father of Kish, Kish was the father of Saul, and Saul was the father of Johnathan, Malki-Shua, Abinadab, and Esh-Baal. Moza was the father of Binea, Raphah was his son, Eliash his son, and Azel his son. All these were descendants of Benjamin. So it says Saul was in fact a descendant of Benjamin, which means his father would have been a descendant of Benjamin. But as we know, it does not stretch back as far as we'd like it to. Kind of stops at jail. I did put him here just for the sake of putting him here. At least he is in the right time, the right generation. There's his son Johnathan, Esh-Baal, Micah, Python. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it's literally Python, not Python. Okay, here are the other sons of Saul over here. Okay, and this goes all the way down. Moza was a son of Zimri, who was a son of Jehudah. Okay, goes all the way down. These individuals down here were skilled bow warriors. We have Eshek, who had Ulam, Jeush, Eliphet, and their children, these three, they were all a tribe or a clan of skilled bow warriors. So we talked a little bit about these skin tents, right? People were mobile, okay? Although they had settled in the city of Jerusalem, and it was an established city and kingdom, people were still mobile, people were still nomadic, people moved around, people had to move around because they were exiled more times than we'd like to remember. So people were very nomadic. It does just remind me of our Native American ancestors and how they were trained with the bow, okay, living in tents from time to time. Okay, let's go ahead and continue here. Just go back to my reading. Okay. All Israel was listed in the genealogies recorded in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. They were taken captive to Babylon because of their unfaithfulness. So this was after the last king. If you don't remember, this is kind of jumping forward quite a bit. After the last king, we had the exile to Babylon due to, if we remember, the much evil king Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar destroyed Jerusalem, absolutely destroyed it, and he exiled everybody to Babylon. Okay, so we're jumping forward, right? Remembering that, like we read in Kings, 2 Kings. It says here, though, now the first to resettle on their own property in their towns were some Israelites, priests, and Levites, and temple servants. Okay, so this is after the exile to Babylon. We had some individuals who came back to Israel. These are the ones who came first. Okay, of the Benjamites, we have Saul, son of Meshullam, the son of Hadabiah, and the son of Hasanoah. Okay, of the Levites, we have Shemaiah, son of Hashub, the son of Azrikam, the son of Hashabiah, a Merarite. So let's just take a look at Saul. Let's go ahead and see if we can find Saul here. Saul, okay, so as we talked about, he's going to be a little bit farther down because we have to go through all the kings. Right, a little bit farther down. I just put them there. I don't know if that's the right spot for them, but it does seem to be after where I put some of the last kings. Okay, first to resettle back in Jerusalem. And then if we go back to Levites, let's just go to Levi real quick, see if we can find them. Levi, remember how expansive this was. Okay. Here we have some of the first. We have the priests, Jedediah, Jehoram, Jakin. Okay, we have Malki-Shua, Pashur, Jeroham, Adiah. All these Levites were the first. And although they are in one spot within the tribe of Levi, they were scattered among different tribes as well. But these are the first. When it says first, that means they're coming, the first to come back to Jerusalem after the exile. And there's quite a lot of Levites, okay, because they had to handle the temple of God. They had to handle the holy things. Let's go ahead and continue. We have the gatekeepers, Shalom, Akab, Talmon, Alhiman, and their fellow Levites, Shalom their chief, being stationed at the king's gate on the east up to the present time. They would spend the night stationed around the house of God because they had to guard it, and they had charge of the key for opening it each morning. Okay, so that's just a little snippet. We jump forward just a bit just to cover everybody, right? To cover the importance of returning to Jerusalem. We know that that's coming, even though we have not quite read about that yet. We know that that's coming, but then we're going to go back. We're jumping back. It starts off chapter 9, or finishes off chapter 9 with another genealogy of Saul, which we learn about Jael. Jael, the father of Gibeon, lived in Gibeon. Imagine that. His wife's name was Maakah, and his firstborn son was Abdon, followed by Zer, Kish, Baal, Ner, and Nadab, Jedor, Ahio, Zechariah, and Mikloth. So if we just want to go ahead and finish where we started, we'll go back there. So easiest one to remember here. So Esh-Baal. Okay, there we go. Jael, Gibeon, Maakah, his sons Abdon, Zer, Kish, Baal, and Ner. Ner had another son named Kish, who had Saul. Did I do that right? I should have done that right. Because there's the son of Gibeon, who is also Kish. Ner was the father of Kish. Okay, makes sense. Kish was the father of Saul, so there must have been another Kish. People did rename children back then, just as we do today. Their same names. Okay, after their uncle, I guess, right? So here we go, you guys. This is it. This is all I was able to do. I was trying to have a little bit of fun with this, and I was taking what is known as your PII, not yours, but mine, my PII, right? Stuff that does not change throughout time. Our personal identifiable information, like our names, our birthdays, that does not change. Our phone numbers is also can be PII, or address can be PII, but that changes so frequently. I must have had like 3-4 phone numbers in the course of my life. Not too many. 3-4 phone numbers, many addresses, okay, over 15, I would say, over the course of my life. So that changes, but what I did take was my birthday. I took my name, I put it in numerical format, I took the numerical and I put it in an alphanumeric format. And I also took another piece that does not change about myself, which is my social security number. We think that has no relevance. We think it has, just governmental purposes. But it is a part of us in a way. It's our identifier. So what I did is I made a little section of letters that I had within my name, my first, middle, and last name. I took my PII, I turned that into letters and added it to my little box of letters that I have. I had many, many A's. I had 2 B's. I had a C, a D, an E, an F, a G, an H, an I, and so on. Okay, I'm not going to reveal it all. Alright, I was going to share it openly, but I kind of got tired as I was getting through. And I discovered some interesting things, and how I did so was going through, right? If I have an A, I'll stick in the A column. But, so Shem actually was in close relation, but Shem has an H, and I did not have an H in my box of letters. Okay, I did not have an H, but I had an E, an L, an A, an N, and then I had another A. Okay, so we're kind of cross-checking and canceling out where we can. So closely within the line of Shem, I have Elam, okay, related to Elam. And if you do have an H, H was actually an optional letter for me. It was something I can derive from compiling some extra numbers together. I can get an H if I so choose, meaning that an H is not far off from me. It would be in my parents' bloodline or something like that, or my parents' name or something like that. Word box of letters, right? Because it's not just the letters of your name. But if you have an H, goodness gracious, you are going to be related to many and many, many people. So I kept H optional because many of these names, you guys have H's in them. Okay, almost every single one. Alright, so it made it easy for me to keep it optional so I can narrow things down. Alright, but we continue, right? We have B. I did look to see which one of my letters coincide. For example, I don't have a T, so this would not work, right? I could not. Oh, actually, I do have a T. Let me do something I remember. I don't have an R at all in any of my box of letters. So this would not apply, even though I was, a B, right? I have a B. But if it has any other letter, it won't apply to you. And that's just how I was trying to have fun with it. Of course, is not perfect. Okay, this is not everybody. This is not something that I could take to a science. Okay, obviously, but it was just something I was kind of having fun with, as I've said now 3 times. But going through, it's very interesting. I have an I have an S, I have 2 S's, I have A, I have C, and I have a Y. So this only really lines up to Isaac. Everybody else has an H or a U that I don't have. Okay, a D, I actually don't have any D's. Oh, I have 1 D. I don't have 2 D's. So if somebody has 2 D's, definitely check out the line of David, although his section is a little bit tricky to get down, because as we move along, you have to have both, right? An A and a D to be related to this line. And then you also have to have all the letters here. Okay. So that's the fun that I've been having. So I do encourage you to take a look. I will end up protecting this so no changes can be made, view only, and I'll share the link if it will allow me to do so. Okay. And I don't have a Q, so Israel was not in application, Jacob was not in application, although I don't even have a J either. So if anybody has a Q, also good luck, you will be related to some very important people. Okay? But who else did I have? I had the Levites. Simeon, I don't think so, because I didn't have Simeon, maybe. Oh, I don't have an O. That didn't work because I don't have an O. Definitely Levi was like my thing, because I have an A, or excuse me, I have a B, and I had an S. So we traced it down, related to some people, if I choose to include the H. Somebody that surprised me, right? I have a C and a B, and 2 S's. So Moses. I actually have some ties, some spiritual ties to Moses, and many of the Levites, more associated with these lines, the lines of music. Okay, so that was cool to me. I have 1 king. I was very proud to discover. His name was Asa. And I was a little bit nervous because remember we read about all those kings and how much of a troublemaker a lot of them were. They were troublemakers. Let's see where Asa is a little bit hard to find. Here he is. Oh, let's go back. Where did it go? Asa, you guys might, because A's are pretty frequent, so you might also be in relation to Asa. If you have let's see what this is, an E and a C, and 2 A's and an S, welcome Asa. Asa was a good king, okay? He comes from the line of Solomon, who comes from the line of David. So good, I do have some ties to David. I thought so. Okay? King Asa was a good king. He did well in the eyes of the Lord. So when I read Asa, I got nervous and I had to go look. I'm like, okay, let me see. I opened the Bible. Immediately, it just opened to Asa's page, which was dope. And I read about him. He was one of the good ones, you guys, from the line of Solomon. Pretty early on he ruled, right after Abijah. But yes, he was one of the good ones. Smart ruler, did a lot of good by the Lord, so I was stoked. You can go ahead and discover for yourself, you guys. But yeah, that's the fun I was having. I was taking a little extra time once the sheet was set. Once the tabs were set. Caleb, I have a relation. But yeah, I'm just humble bragging at this point, but it's very interesting. And I'm saying this quite in a matter-of-fact way. I understand it's not, a science. I understand that. But it's just something that I can, pull and relate from based off of my understanding and what the Lord has inspired me to go ahead and do. But again, take it with several grains of salt, I would say. Alright, you guys, I'm wrapping this up right now. I know that was a little bit of a lengthy chat with you this morning. I have laundry I forgot about. I have to go grab. Okay, enough of this. Have a good day, you guys. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening. If you stayed to the end, high five, applause, round of applause. Thank you. I will talk to you again very soon. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.